Awesome. Okay, so welcome. I want to welcome each and every single individual to this webinar today. I am more than ecstatic to have you guys here. As you know, I have been with College of the Desert now for 2 years, so I'm excited to share this stage with you. So first and foremost, I want to let you guys know that we will be doing a series of workshops. So this is going to be the first of 4 workshops. This one in particular, we have a keynote from the spectacular Dr. Bull. So just to go over a couple of things before we actually get to this wonderful keynote, I want to let each and every single one of you know that you are encouraged to ask questions. During this session, this is really going to take you out of your comfort zone. It is going to challenge your thoughts. It's going to challenge your mind. But I want to make sure that you use the feature that we have to ask questions, okay? The questions, we have set aside some time, about 10 minutes, to be able to talk with each and every single one of you and answer as many questions as we can. But as I said before, this is the first of 4 workshops. We will have one as of today. We'll have 2 in September. And then our last one will be in October. And Dr. Veronica Dowd, she will send out those actual dates. So just to get started, first and foremost, the workshop is entitled Implicit Biases to Explicit Action. That is a deep title, and I could promise you the content that goes with this title is going to be just as deep. So introducing myself, my name is Chris Williams. I have the honor and privilege of being the moderator for today's keynote. Along with that, I am the assistant professor and counselor at Riverside City College. I am the adjunct counselor here at the wonderful College of the Desert. And as you know, College of the Desert is very near and dear to my heart. So I'm super ecstatic that we were able to put together this workshop and discuss what is going on in our current climate. So before I introduce our scholar, our keynote, I want to set the tone for today's workshop. 2020, when we think of this year, there are numerous words that we could use to describe it. There are so many words that we could say that I can't even say them in this webinar, but I want to put you in that mindset on what 2020 has brought us. So at the very beginning of 2020, we lost Lakers legend Kobe Bryant. And initially when that happened in January, I thought that there could be nothing worse. You know, this was a fluke. This happened. This is not a great way to start off 2020, but that was the worst thing that could happen. 2 months later, we experienced a pandemic that has ran rapid through the United States and the world, but highlighted and spotlighted the inequities that we have when it comes to people of color and their alarming death rates. This pandemic has put us on lockdown. This pandemic has highlighted the mental health illnesses that individuals have suffered, again, because of the inequities. 2 months later after that, the death of George Floyd. Let me rewind that. 2 months after the pandemic, the lynching of George Floyd in the hands of police. This has caused racial unrest. This has caused racial protests, not only throughout the states, but throughout the world. At this time, faculty, administrators, staff who are on this call, your students need you more than ever, okay? When you see your students, there are a lot that are going through their head. For Black Americans, for Black male students, for students of color, it's more than just the classroom. at this point. Before they walk into the classroom, before they walk into your office, there are thoughts that are ravaging their heads, their minds, their souls. So I'm happy that you're here to get this education, but again, I want to make sure that you are asking questions, maybe questions that you feel uncomfortable to ask, or you never had a chance to ask. This is the time to do so. And if we can't get to your questions today, as I said earlier during the presentation, we have 3 more workshop webinar series that we plan to make more interactive to be able to digest these different questions that you have. So now I would love to have this opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker for the day, Dr. Abdul-Malik Bull. He's known throughout the education system as a progressive practitioner, an emancipatory educator, and an anti-racist activist. He is an innovative, dynamic leader within the San Diego community and state of California. He holds a bachelor's and master's degree from San Diego State University and has completed his doctoral work in educational leadership with an emphasis in educational psychology from USC. He is an assistant professor of counseling, transfer center director at the San Diego City College, and a board member of Amend. My brother, Dr. Abdul-Malik Bull, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Chris Williams, and thank you to the phenomenal staff that put this together, and all of you for your attendance. And as Chris mentioned, I hope today that you engage us with an open heart, an open mind, given the racial climate and the pandemic within a pandemic that many are experiencing. So today's workshop is titled From Implicit Bias to Explicit Action. And if we can go to the next slide, I hope that today we'll cover some of the foundations of racism and white supremacy, as well as the next point being go on the next point, and third point as well, the manifestations of white supremacy and anti-Blackness. And ultimately, what we want to do in these series of workshops is transitioning from gaining all this knowledge and implementing it. How do we transition from talking about equity to walking about equity? As the saying goes, knowledge without action is like a tree that bears no fruit. And so to get this knowledge, to understand these emotional, this heightened emotional racial climate that we're in, we want to say and do something. And how does that look like? What does that feel like? And how can we operationalize that? And so today I want to kind of set the foundations for that and then help us transition and move towards that. Next slide. So why is this work difficult? And why is it necessary? Oftentimes we struggle over the meanings of race and equality. What do these terms mean? Everyone has a different definition of racism, right? We also discussed the fact that we're generally more comfortable discussing class and gender. This whataboutism. We like to pivot, we like to switch, we like to not focus on that raw emotional feeling of the hurt, the pain, the trauma that exists. And so we often fail to acknowledge the ways that race has been a fundamental axis of social organization in the United States, how it truly was the foundation of this country. And I say that because I want to acknowledge the fact that I'm sitting on Kumeyaay land, in a country that was founded upon the looting of indigenous folk, the free labor of stolen African human potential and labor, and really teaching folks that the border crossed, that they didn't necessarily cross that border. And so we're often reluctant to acknowledge the legacies of race. And it leaves us in this very hypocritical state, right? And we see that the hypocrisy that we witness in one city, that a young white male can literally kill 2 people, walk around after he committed that murder, and an unarmed Black man in that same city by the same police force does the opposite. And so they resonate with our deeply held beliefs about success and failure. And we prefer to address the symptoms rather than the roots of social problems. We focus on the structures and the systems as opposed to the institutions and the systematic births of these things. And that's why I like to go to the root causes of why we act and do what we do. Next slide, please. And so one of the reasons why it is difficult to talk about racism is that race itself is a social construct. And then we have this dictionary definition, right? I believe that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. This is the dictionary definition that actually has been challenged since George Floyd's death. And so we've went around with this dictionary definition. If we go to the next point on the slide, we know that race is a social construct, but it has real life implications, right? Even though it's something that's socially constructed, it has real life impact on that construct for folks. And so if we go to the next slide, we have to look at and unearth where is this coming from. So we're gonna watch this video and help us really understand the definition of racism by Dr. Joy DeGru, a scholar and professor at Portland State University.
How many people think they understand what racism is? Show of hands. Come on, you think you know. I'm not suggesting I know. I just have a couple of definitions that kind of came to me as I thought about. How many people think there are white racists? That there are white racists out there? How many think there are black racists out there? Okay. Now, this is an interesting thing because this becomes important as we begin to define concepts. Now, I do that. I usually define concepts all the way. But one of the things that I do is I try to help people get a picture of what I mean by racism. So tell me how it is. I'm going to first category is white racism, then we'll deal with black racism. So white racism. Tell me the ways in which white racism adversely impacts the lives of black people. Just what are the ways that white racism can adversely impact the lives of black people as a group? What are some of those ways? I'm sorry? Power, but how is that defined specifically? Education, okay. I'm sorry? Economically, employment. What else? Housing, what else? Policing. Why are we here today? Healthcare, okay. Now, we can actually kind of grow that list. Now we're going to move over to black racism. Tell me the ways in which black racism adversely impacts the lives of white people as an entire group. Thank you. The reason why you become silent, there's one that always comes up, and that's fear. White people are afraid of black people. They are afraid of us. And it's a very interesting thing because black people know it. We know white people are afraid, but you have to start getting into the psychology. What are you afraid of? Why are you afraid? But it's an interesting dynamic. Now, also you see the difference in what racism is, do you not? Racism implies you have not just prejudice, but the power to do something with that prejudice. Now, I don't like you, not only that, but I'm going to control whether you can get, I may say I hate you. I hate white people. I hate them. It's not going to change you getting that, loan when you go to the bank. I can hate you all the way to the bank. Not going to change. Do you see the difference? That whereas white racism says, not only do I not like you, but I'm going to change the impact of where you can live. I'm going to determine with that racism where your powers are. You following me? And I'm talking about as a group, not an individual, because people said, I remember when my uncle didn't. I'm not talking about your uncle. I'm talking about the whole group. I'm not talking about an incident. That's a difference. But white people are afraid. So let's get into how this fear impacts criminal justice. Because if white people in this room are afraid of black people, guess who else is afraid of black people? Only they have guns. So now let's look at what he said.
So as we're witnessing here, this is very, very important in defining racism. Dr. Joy DeGru laid out the foundation here. It is not just the assumption of the prejudice against someone because of their race, but it's when those views are actually reinforced by systems of power. So Black folk can say, or people of color can say, I hate you, but they can't deny you bank loans. They can't put together laws like Jim Crow, right? Where there's systems that enact that in education, in economics, in entertainment, in labor, in law, in politics, in race and religion. So these are the areas, if we go to the next point here, that Dr. Nellie Fuller talks about. So if you don't understand white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. And so now we have to contextualize things in a systematic, structural way to understand that not only do I have these powers, these systems that reinforce these prejudice ideas and these stereotypes to enact gerrymandering, voting suppression, right? And so let's see how that plays out in our society. Next slide, please. We have these 4 levels of really racism, and this is something that I want folks to really digest and understand. So the personal is private beliefs and prejudice and ideas that individuals have. So if educators believe that their students of color are inherently inferior, if they don't have the intellectual capacity to succeed, then they start to, in the interpersonal phase, interact and teach them accordingly. So now that I understand that, hey, you know, you're not as bright, you're not as intelligent, you're not as capable as my other non-Black student or non-white student, then I start to treat you differently, right? So people have these inherent fears. Okay, Black men are inherently dangerous. So my interpersonal reaction is that I clutch my purse. So folks focus on the personal beliefs that manifest into the interpersonal ideas. These interpersonal reactions are what we call microaggressions or macroaggressions, right? And then we have taken that and we take it to the 3rd level where they become institutional. So when teachers say, you know what, Tyrone or Jorge is not paying attention and they're being, you know, very disruptive in class, now I'm using my interpersonality as a teacher, the relationship with them as a teacher, and I'm going to institutionalize suspension and expulsion rates. I'm going to send you to the principal's office. I'm going to make sure that you're expelled for your delinquent behavior. So now I'm enacting my positionality as a teacher in my interpersonal reaction and weaponizing the institution behind me to suspend you. And then that relieves and pushes people to the structural piece, which is the systems in which public policies and institutional practices and other norms perpetuate racial group inequality. This is how the preschool to prison pipeline happens, ladies and gentlemen. So now we have, again, a personal belief that I believe that Black and brown kids can't focus. They're not well behaved. As a teacher, I've used that in my interactions with them by sending, you know, reinforcing that you're bad, that you're not paying attention. And then I've sent them to the principal's office by treating them a certain way, right? Not doing restorative justice practices. And then they get suspended. And then now their suspension and expulsion rates, their literacy rates, their educational attainment rates leads to their incarceration rates. Are y'all with me on that? So now I'm literally becoming a conduit and a person that's conducting the preschool to prison pipeline through my racism, my beliefs, my actions, and ultimately the policies and powers that support that. And so that's why we see unemployment. We see that the direct connection to, not a correlation, but a causality of the education rates. And that's why the studies have said that at 3rd grade, they can determine who's going to be in prison. So if we go to the next slide, it's important that look at, as Dr. Joy DeGru mentioned and Dr. Nellie Fuller mentioned, housing, we do that. Who lives in the suburbs? Who lives in the, you know, in urban metropolitan areas in skyrockets, these skyrises and these, you know, project housing in New York, in Chicago, in Baltimore, right? Who is being flooded to the criminal justice system? Who has detrimental impacts in public health? Who has less access to educational resources? Who has less access to banking and capital, right? And so again, we see these tiered systems, these internalized, interpersonal, institutional, and then systemic structures that occur. And so the poverty rates that we look at, nothing has changed in 1974. It's literally the same acquisition of wealth rate for folks. Despite the unemployment rate, despite the wage gaps, it's still poverty is impacting Black and brown folks at a detrimental rate, at a disproportionate rate. So if we go on to the next slide, we see, how does this play out? Well, they say when it rains, it pours. That's why you see in certain counties, right? For example, we see here that in King County, that Black men were 5 times more likely of dying from COVID to their white counterparts. It's not like coronavirus is looking for Black men specifically versus white men, right? But because of the prerequisites, the pre-existing conditions of wage gaps and poverty, who was an essential worker and access to healthcare, right? We positioned people to really fail. And so when the COVID happened, we see rates that are just disproportionate like this. Just like our educational rates are completely disproportionate. We see that in DC, for example, that 46% of the population, Blacks were 46% of the population, but there were 74% of the COVID-19 deaths. Latinos were 9%, but they were 13% of the deaths, right? We see that African Americans are 12.4% of the US population, but they're accounting for double, 23.8% of the COVID deaths. In Maryland, we see that they're 29%, but they're accounting for 40% of the deaths. Latinx folks are 8% in Virginia, but they're accounting for 11.5% of the deaths. And so now we have to really analyze and assess these systems and structures that have disproportionately positioned people of color through systematic and institutional racism to literally die. So this is the preschool to prison pipeline. It's our education, it's our housing, where they're in these areas where they can't really socially distance in these apartment complexes when you stuff them like sandwiches, right? Like sardines in these high rises, right? And so we have to structurally analyze, as opposed to the suburban areas where there's widespread space, where you have access to a house, where home ownership is critical, where you get to dictate your environment. So we have to understand structural and systematic racism is deadly. And that's why we should care, and that's why we should have these conversations. Next slide, please. And so one more place to really assess this is in King County, and then go with this quote. They say, when white folks catch a cold, Black folks catch pneumonia. We see that whites were 58% of the population, but accounted for 50%. So there's an inverse of catching COVID, right? But then for Black folks, they're 6.4%, but they're nearly double at 10.2. And Latinx folks are 10%, but they're nearly, double at 23%, over double. And Asians actually are similar in regards to white folks having access in that regard. And obviously we have Pacific Islander indigenous folks. So again, structural and institutional racism exists. If anything made that more blatant than ever, it has been COVID-19. It isn't like Black and Latinx folks are saying, coronavirus, come catch me. No, they have structural, institutional access issues and barriers from healthcare, from housing, from education, from jobs, where they're actually literally on the front lines. We saw that bus driver in Chicago saying, please mask up, please. And then like 2 days later, he died because he was an essential worker. So we have to understand how we have institutionally and structurally, historically positioned people of color to fail. Next slide, please. And so where did these thoughts come from? These foundations of racism. It's very, very essential that we break this down. Aristotle, the founder of democracy, believed in climate theory to justify Greek superiority. He claimed that extreme hot or cold temperatures produce intellectual, physical, and morally inferior people, meaning that if you were super dark, that you were inferior. Climate theory is actually one of the most racist theories out there, right? But because the Greeks were in the Mediterranean area and they had nice access to the sun and they got a beautiful tan, that they were more civilized. They were more positioned to rule the world. And they were less barbaric, right? Aristotle and Plato considered Greeks so innately superior to barbarians that slavery is justified so long as the master is a Greek and the slave is a barbarian. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, they're barbarians that they looked at were actually Slavic people, people in Eastern Europe. So we have to understand where these theologies of racism came from, and some of our people that we glorify, that we put on a high horse, whether it's Theodore Roosevelt, whether it's Thomas Jefferson, whether it's Andrew Jackson, whether it's George Washington, these founders, quite a few of these people were slave owners. and believed in these things and actually acted upon these things. So that's why we have to re-examine where we think some of the thoughts and beliefs come from. Next slide. This is the architect right here, ladies and gentlemen, of the transatlantic slave trade. He was commissioned by Prince George, and he believed, Gomez de Zurara, he actually believed transitioning slavery from Eastern Europe, because actually slavery comes from Slavs, which is Slavic. So a lot of the people that actually were slaves were the Slavic people. And this is actually in the book by Dr. Ibn Kendi, snapped from the beginning. He's the one that commissioned out of Portugal and through Northern Africa, slavery that we know today, the transatlantic slave trade. He believed black Ethiopians were so ugly. They lived like beasts without any custom and reasonable beings. They had no understanding of good, but only knew how to live a bestial sloth. So we had to go ahead, colonize these folks so we can make them live a decent life. And so he actually put anti-blackness into the slavery complex and focused in on Africa and black folk and theorized this. Next slide, please. We have in our educational system, Carl Brigham, professor of psychology at Princeton University. He believed that blacks were intellectually deficient in native or inborn intelligence and lacked intelligence. And he said that would actually likely lead to the decline of nations collectively. We see this, oh my God, if Obama takes over, the economy is gonna be in the crapper, right? Anything that black folk touch is gonna be gone. He believed in eugenics. This is the individual, ladies and gentlemen, that founded the SAT and the IQ test. And then we took this IQ test and this SAT that was founded by a white supremacist that believed in black and indigenous inferiority, and we used it as an admissions tool to set a barricade between access to education, which obviously undoubtedly leads to access to what? Employment, right? That is how we have institutionalized and systemized our racism, knowingly or unknowingly. Next slide, please. So we wonder why we have educational attainment rates for black men being the way they are. We use a racist tool to say, you know what, you get to be eligible to go to college, you don't get to be eligible to go to college. And we do that at a very young age. We say you're a GATE student, you're an honor student, you're a delinquent, you're not. We label folks, right? Where do these assessments come from? Do they actually have foundations of white supremacy and intellectual inferiority as their theorists that we're figuring out? And so now we have to look and say, take it back, seat back. And I teach a graduate school counseling program right now. And I was telling my students, essays and quizzes do not make you a better counselor. That is not a predictor of success. A GRE exam going into a counseling program does not tell me how great of a counselor you can be. That is not an accurate method of an assessment. And that's why the UC system, thank God, got rid of the SATs, because they found out that that is not a predictor of success. They got rid of that this past year. It's one of the most racist things that they concluded to, right? And so now we have to re-examine, ladies and gentlemen, as educators, what are these systems designed to do? Are they designed to get the results that they were wanting to? Or should we dismantle, disrupt, and create a new? And that is the moment that we're in right now. Next slide. It's also prevalent in our language. And there's something I want to talk about, racism, specifically anti-blackness. And that is what's really, really prevalent in this era of Black Lives Matter. We use it so methodically, so unconsciously that we don't even think about it. We talk about extortion, we say black male. We talk about rejection, we say blacklist. We talk about banishment, we say blackball. We talk about illegal, we say black market. We talk about evil, we say black magic. We don't say outcast, we say black sheep. We don't say power outage, we say black out. It is so ingratiated, ingrained in our vocabulary that we don't think twice about it. But then we have also come to this new era in which we use coded language, ghetto, urban, right? We saw a couple nights ago, they're gonna attack the suburbs. Who lives in the suburbs? Come on, right? These savages, they're aggressive, they're divisive. These are terminologies that we use in the boardroom. And I want you to assess, have you used the term aggressive and divisive in your interviews? Have you used that in your classroom when a student asks you a question, you felt like they were being aggressive or divisive by bringing up a point? Have you used that in your financial aid office when a student was disgruntled because they were denied their financial aid and they went through several barriers? We have to ask these questions. Are they truly aggressive? Can they be disheartened? Can they be emotional? Can they be passionate, right? So we have to really unearth and decolonize our vocabulary and our language because it's so metastasized with anti-Blackness and racism. Next slide, please. And so how do we do that? And that's what this workshop and these series of workshops is going to be about. And it's going over those 4 areas where we really reflect on the individual, who you are. Who are you? What defined that for you? Why do you think the way you think? Why do you identify the way you identify? Where do these thoughts come from? How do your beliefs inform the way in which you interact with the world? How do you know that? So this is that self-inquiry piece, that individual, again, going through those 4 levels. And then how then do you take that piece of who you are after examining who you are? And William Butler Yeats says that it takes more courage to examine the deepest corners of your life than it does for a soldier to be on the battlefield. To examine and critically think who you are. The unexamined life is not worth living, right? So we have to examine who we are consistently and constantly and interrogate ourselves. And then say, why do we interact with folks this way? That's the second piece. Reflecting on the individual as it relates to others. How do I interact with my peers? How do I interact with my children? How do I interact with racist thoughts and actions that are said at my dinner table without me checking them? And my friends, right? And then we then start to look at understanding the self in a positionality within that system. I'm a father in a family context. I'm a mother in a family context. I'm a daughter in a family context. I'm a son, right? I'm an aunt, I'm an uncle. I'm a teacher, I'm a professor. I'm a coach. I'm an administrator. I am somebody in that system, and how then do I enact change within that structure and system? That's the 4th part. So you move from why and how do you think to what ways can you change? In what ways should I or could I eliminate racism and anti-Blackness? How can I ensure that doesn't happen on my watch? How can I ensure that I educate my colleagues and my peers? What can I do to make this? So you move from why and how to what. And we're going to talk about that process because it's a process and not a product. That means it's consistently happening over and over again. Next slide, please. So we talked about, once you start to do this, you gotta start asking yourself, what have you begun to see that you cannot unsee? People saw George Floyd murdered. That wasn't really a murder, that was torture. See, murder is something that happens really quick. Gunshot. What we saw was 8 minutes plus of someone being choked out and their life literally leaving, their soul leaving, departing from their body. Animals, predators, the lion displays more mercy when it kills its prey because it snaps its neck. Sharks, when they kill fish, they actually have quick deaths. What we saw was torture, and it struck a chord in your humanity. It had to. If you're a human being, something in your soul said, whoa, this is not right. Something in your soul said, Jacob Blake being shot in front of his 3 kids 7 times in the back, something's not right. Something is unsettling for me here. Something is awakening my soul. So what have you begun to unearth about yourself when it comes to white supremacy? Something is telling you that why is a white kid with a shotgun and an AR rifle parading down the street in the same city where he just killed 2 people, shot another person, getting water bottles and high fives and throwing signals to police officers, where the same police officers shot an unarmed Black man in front of his kids? Something's not right here. Something's telling you to really examine that. So you have to also ask yourself, how have you excluded, discounted, tone policed, projected white fragility onto minoritized individuals? And this is the point where we have to focus on not just the content of what people are saying. People focus on, well, he said that pretty aggressively. Oh my God, he sounded so mad. Focus on the content. Focus on the content. Forget about the tone, focus on the content. Next slide, please. So I ask you to do 3 things. Number 1, inquire. Number 2, interrogate. And number 3, integrate. Inquire, is my curriculum inclusive? Do my students see themselves in the course content? Do I center whiteness? Am I using these theorists in my course content? What books am I using? My imagery, my examples, my Zoom background. Do I say, you know what, today I'm going to make sure that I have something that's going to affirm my dreamer students, something that's going to affirm my Black students, something that's going to affirm immigrants, something that's going to affirm their humanity and their dignity? If not, why? If so, why? How can I be more inclusive? How can I be more reflective? And this is when you have to humble yourself in a very Freirean way and ask your students, how can I be a better educator? That is humility and humbleness. And that is the work and the intention that is required to engage in this work. And that is how you bake it in, you don't sprinkle it on. This is a process. This is not a product. This is not something you do overnight. It's not a protest that we go to and we clock in and we clock out and we're back to our daily lives. This is a lifelong legacy that we need to change. Next slide. And that is why it's important to disrupt and to dismantle and to decolonize. Are you still moving with the, usual, are you still moving with the business usual energy? If you are going to teach a class this semester and you are not going to incorporate anything that's happening in the outside world, we're living in a fictitious utopia. So you have to ask yourself, have I as an educator grown in understanding in this remote virtual world that I have to learn more tools in my toolkit than just how to upload a course on Canvas or Blackboard? Have I read a book or 2 to talk about the experiences to educate myself and how I can be a more effective, engaging educator, despite my role as classified or faculty? Have I identified inequities in the sources of that power? Am I active, engaged in decolonizing myself in my classroom? And that goes from, if you look at this image, you see the actual police brutality of British soldiers shooting Boston Tea Party rioters. And this country was founded upon looting, this thing called the Boston Tea Party. I don't know if you heard about it, but this thing was, they were shouting these slogans called no taxation without representation, and it led to this thing called the American Revolution. So now we're gonna say, oh, this country was founded upon looting and rioting that led to revolution? And so we have to really understand, examine the fact that folks are out on these streets. What are they demanding? The same thing that 400 plus years ago in an equitable system was demanded, that bought the foundation of what this country is today. So we must decolonize your syllabus, not just the supplemental material, but also your expectations. What is the real learning goal? Get clear and then relax a little, because we're in a global pandemic, as Ebony Moore mentions. And I got that from my good friend, Dr. Aaron Charlins, who's a phenomenal colleague of mine. And so we're talking about how to really decolonize yourself, but also manage expectations. So next slide, please. And so you're gonna go through various zones and everyone's entering the space at different levels. Some of you are at the growth zone, right? Where you're comfortable sitting with your discomfort, that you promote and advocate for policies and leaders that are anti-racist, right? That you create space, that you speak out, that you're educated, you're woke, right? And some of you in the learning zone, you recognize racism is present and it's a current problem. You seek out questions that make you feel uncomfortable. You're willing to learn. You step out of your discomfort. You acknowledge that racism is structural, right? You're vulnerable in your own biases, and you acknowledge you have gaps in areas that you need to grow in, right? And you listen. And then some of us are in the fear zone, where deny racism is problematic. You avoid hard questions. You strive to be comfortable. You want to keep the peace, right? You can only do so long, but just turn on the news and American cities are burning. Whether it's Portland, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's Kenosha, right? Whether it's Minneapolis, whether it's LA. Like, American cities are burning under stay-at-home orders. And so you cannot live in this bubble in the fear zone. You have to kind of step outside of that. What you have to ask, why are people willing to die and risk getting COVID and being shot by white supremacists on these streets? There's this thing called the racism that people are having an outcry about. And that is the work that awaits us. And you are going to be much, much more primed for that if you're willing to go through these zones and acknowledge these spaces. Next slide, please. And so I ask you, you must educate yourself. You must emancipate your mind from the shackles of colonization and internalized racism. And you must elevate yourself and your consciousness and your colleagues' consciousness to a higher space. You must have meaningful inter and intra-dialogue across racial lines, that we are having conversations about young Black men of how to act when they are engaging with police officers, how to cooperate so they can live another day, how to corral their emotions despite the injustice that's happening, despite the fact that your taillight was not broken, despite the fact that the cops should not have been called upon you. But we also should have parallel conversations of why are we having the barbecue Beckys and the Amy Coopers and the Karens of the world calling the police on these people that are not doing anything but drinking water or just enjoying, bird watching at the park or barbecuing, right? Why are we continuously and consistently having these engagements in which we have to have these conversations? And so these are parallel conversations that have to have within the system and structures. And so you have the agency, if you have privilege, to enact that. And so we need to move beyond book clubs, ladies and gentlemen. We need to move from reading and start being. We move from reading and we start being the change agents that we can be. And that's how you go from being woke to awakening your community. And so I leave you with this next slide that's very important. And that is understanding your positionality, your power, and your privilege. We must challenge the narratives of privilege, right? When Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old kid killed for having a fake toy gun, but Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old white boy, white male, he walked by police after killing 2 people and got to go home and sleep. Literally, dragging from his neck. People saying he's the one who shot them, right? But Tamir Rice was killed for a toy gun. And so the system that does that is very, very interesting for us to be completely ambivalent to that. We cannot. So we have to challenge the narratives of privilege. We have to assess our powers and leverage your agency to enact change. We see the NBA players said, you know what, we're gonna go from taking knees to having the NBA and the media take their knees. If you cannot respect Black lives, then you don't have the right and privilege to be entertained by Black lives. If Black lives don't matter to you because you can indiscriminately kill them and not care, then you know what, you don't get to be entertained by them, right? And that's why they were not gonna shut up and dribble. And they bought the economic power they had, and they bought the media and the sports world to its knees and say, you know what, please come and play. We must do something. That is understanding your privilege. That is understanding your positionality and your power. So are you in a space where now you can give and amplify space to people? Have you been in the same committee forever? Is it time for you to step aside and say, you know what, you need to have this leadership role. Let's empower you. Is it time for you to say, what, I'm not gonna pass the mic. I'm gonna go ahead and put a booster on this mic and amplify what this person of color has been saying, right? And I want you to do it for justice, not out of emotion, because emotions come and go, right? George Floyd, oh my God. And then like people are quiet over the summer. And then, oh my God, then we have another person. So we have to, Breonna Taylor's killers are still walking around just drinking water and coffee and having donuts like nothing happened, right? This lady was killed in her own home. Killed, murdered in her own home, and they lied about it. And the justice has not seen that family. They're just sitting there just chilling. The guy comes on television, right? So to me, it's very, very interesting how we have to do things out of justice, not emotion. Next slide, please. We owe it to our future. If you have an observation, you have an obligation, ladies and gentlemen. You've observed racism. You've observed systematic and structural and institutional racism. You have an obligation to change that. Silence is compliance, right? Martin Luther King mentions we're not gonna remember our enemy, we're gonna remember the silence of our friends. And so that's why it's very, very important that you have to understand that white supremacy impacts white people. Heather Heyer in Charlottesville was a white woman killed by a white supremacist. Kyle killed 2 white men 2 nights ago, protesting, right? So we do have people that are now being anti-racist, but white supremacy and these vigilante groups are also impacting folks. And so we have to understand there's an interrelational aspect. It doesn't matter, my healthcare and me wearing a mask is not going to save me from coronavirus if you don't have healthcare, if you don't have coverage, and if you're not wearing a mask. That we depend on each other, and that's the systems in which we operate. So this bubbles that we live in, these gated communities that we live in, is not going to protect us from the interdependency that we have. And that's what we owe it to our future. I am because we are because I am. Thank you. With that, we can take a few questions if possible with Professor Chris and Veronica. Or we can take off the slide if possible.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Bull, for that wonderful, wonderful keynote. There were a lot of important points that were brought upon your keynote. So now we come down to a point where when we think about what Dr. Bull just said, this means that it's less talk. Now is the time for action. We want action. You want action. As faculty, as administrators, as staff, if we are here for the students, if we're about that equity life, we know what we have to do. These conversations are meant to be uncomfortable. These conversations are meant to have you think outside the box. These conversations are meant for you to be able to see a different perspective. But all in all, the conversation and the reason why we are doing what we're doing is because we want each and every single one of you to be an advocate, to start with action, to improve your syllabus if it's not stating diversity, or if it's not talking or imaging what's going on in the world right now. So I want to give everyone an opportunity to be able to ask some live questions, okay? And again, there is no question that is a wrong question. If there is something that is on your mind that, again, you may have never had a chance to ask, this is the time. So let's start with some questions. Do we have? Okay, so I have one right now, Dr. Bohr. Are there repercussions for faculty or administration or education institutions who are proven to be prejudiced?
You know, unfortunately, the way our system is set up, there's these structures that we need to reanalyze, right? That I know that a lot of institutions have tried to put together board statements and HR processes in which they can deal with, you know, racism. But then we also have tenure. We also have other structures in terms of permanent contracts. And once you leave that probationary stage, in which we have allowed certain behaviors to be, you know, amenable to the institutions. And so I think part of the ways in which we have to analyze is looking at ways of holding institutions accountable, whether it's from a funding perspective or censoring, and really looking at ways we have to really reimagine rooting out these bad apples that are in our system, whether they're policies, whether they're practices, or whether they're individuals who contribute to these racist behaviors. So I think that's something that has to be analyzed. But the way the current structure and system is set up, it's more of an incentive. So you get money, like, for example, the student SEAP, you know, student equity and achievement gap monies for if you close the achievement gap, fund activities, if you in the academic senate, get some funding and some other stuff, if you hire diverse folks. So there's incentives to be better, but there's not really repercussions for folks that are really, I think, from a system and structure space, exhibiting behaviors that are not.
Dr. Buell, we have a question coming in. Just some suggestions as to how we might make our syllabi more inclusive. I know we put things for DSPS, but some specific ideas. We often include comments in our classes, but what could we actually put in our syllabus to demonstrate more openness, if you will? Just some ideas.
That's a very good question, Linda. Number one, we have to affirm the humanity of our students, right? And so, you know, any statements in solidarity from Black Lives Matter in regarding to your students, you know what, your life matters in my classroom. To validate them, affirm their existence. I remember when I was teaching during the election, and a lot of my undocumented students were very, very scared. They're like, I don't know what I'm going to do, you know? And I said, at least in my class, you have a safe space. So acknowledging and affirming that they are, how can you teach someone that has the mental distraction of even being present, right? In that space, am I gonna be picked up tomorrow and be deported? It's life, you know, it's completely more than the classroom for them at that point. So ways in which you can affirm and acknowledge who they are. But number two, ask your students, you know, previous and say, you know, from last semester, the semester you've taught, hey, how could I have been a better professor for you? You know, we get these reviews, again, going to these structural things, but we never ask our students, hey, what could I have done to acknowledge and affirm who you are? So I say acknowledge and affirm, but also assess the ways in which you've done that in the past. Also putting together toolkits, like for example, you know, we have right now food insecurity, right? We have housing insecurity. Put those resources in your syllabi. Now you're talking about really validating the human experience, right? So they're experiencing, you know, homelessness, or they're experiencing, you know, food insecurity. Look at your local food banks. You know, how you expect to teach a mind when the stomach is hungry, right? So I would say really try to teach the human being, and because we teach souls for a living, right? So really try to incorporate all of those different aspects in humanizing and affirming and acknowledging that they exist. And then more importantly, being open to feedback. Open up your syllabus. That's a contract between you and the student. Say, hey, what aspects of the syllabus for me are non-negotiable? What aspects are negotiable, right? And then have that discourse. And you'll be amazed by how much student input you'll get in what we should be really thinking about. And that's just being a student-centered philosophy as a teaching pedagogy.
Question coming in. Brought that in. Go ahead, Felix.
Dr. Bull, it's an honor. I loved your presentation. It was really good. I'm Felix Maruenda Donate. I'm one of the professors here, and I'm one of the founders of the Faculty of Color Caucus. And it's been a challenge getting that off the ground, and it's been a blessing, and it's been great because it's a good support group, and it's good for us to organize rather than have disparate voices. Being together as one voice is powerful. I hear a lot of the stuff you're saying, and I always question myself as to how not to take things personal. And I don't have that ability. I can't. You know, when you see things like Katrina, and when you see things like in Puerto Rico, when you see what's happening right now in Louisiana and stuff like that, that's the microcosm. But when you look at things in our institutions and how we have to do 2, 3, 4, 5 times more work than other people just to represent brown voices, it doesn't seem fair, and it's not right. You know, and you got hiring practices that are embedded in a culture that you also have to fight. And you know, this is personal. You gotta, you know, I can talk all day about this stuff, my man, but I'm gonna try and focus it here. How do you go about changing policies and mindsets in a culture? You know, they don't, it's not right. And this is something that we keep talking about our caucus. Like it's not right to demand more of us, you know, simply because of our life experiences, but at the same time, you can't neglect that. How do you change culture and hiring practices without requiring that, making a minority within a minority, putting a brown person in a committee that requires one brown person. It's not fair. This is just one grain of sand out of a mountain of issues. But that keeps coming back, and it keeps coming back. So can you elaborate on that a little bit, or how to change hiring practices? That seems always to be an issue with us.
Well, first I want to validate, Brother Felix, your pain and your passion as well, and confirm that you are doing powerful work, but that is going to take the whole institution. And that oftentimes racism is not a person of color problem. It's the people of privilege problem, right? No one ever asks the victim, how would you have been less raped? How had you been less brutalized in the domestic violence case? How had you been less bullied? The perpetrators and the beneficiaries should be asked that. They're the ones in need of rehabilitation and discourse. So I want to really contextualize and set that down, that it is an institutional problem and the obligation isn't on the victims, but rather the beneficiaries. And that's why privilege and positionality is important. That is going to take all of us to change. And so I lead you with the James Baldwin quote when he says, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be nothing can be changed until it is faced, right? And so we have to start somewhere. But we also have to be cognizant, especially the people of privilege, of the onus and tax on people of color, right? That we're all the ones, all these different diversity committees. We're all, always pushing the envelope. But oftentimes the sacrifice is important. Muhammad Ali sacrificed in his prime the heavyweight title. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X sacrificed with their lives. This work is going to require sacrifice. But also along those lines were people that were allies and co-conspirators and dismantling the system. They also came with sacrifice. So I mentioned Heather Heyer, and I mentioned the individuals killed in these shootings in Kenosha, that folks are going to have to step outside their comfort zone and say, you know what? This isn't just a person of color problem, that they should have the responsibility and onus, and that I can add to that. Because these people will do this work regardless, because they're doing it for justice, right? And so I think, building coalitions is important. I think these conversations are critical, but also accountability is essential. And that accountability must come from the folks that are not from the choir, right? And so it's gonna require folks to really step up out of their comfort zone and say, you know what? I need to do something, and I need to leave a legacy at my institution.
So as I promised you all, we are actually out of time, and there are a lot of questions in the Q&A. But as I said, we are having more episodes. There's episodes 2, 3, and 4 coming up very soon. So I am hoping to see each and every single one of you at the upcoming events that Veronica will send out to you all.
And Chris, remind folks that those will be more interactive as well. So we'll get to how, we're going to go through a methodical process of institutional, interpersonal, systemic, and structural of how to enact that change.
And they're posted right now. We'll be sending out, once our email's back up, all the information and the links to participate. But these are our dates that we have set for the upcoming 3 series. So we would really appreciate if you all can continue this conversation and join us in these webinar series.
It has been a pleasure to see each and every one of you once again, and I look forward to talking with you soon. You all have a wonderful, wonderful day.